Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I'm here with General Ravi Shankar to talk about a very interesting subject that brings its forth after the recent crisis which is taking place in China. Now, of course, one thing that you all will say is that whenever these two guys sit down, they talk about some of the other crises in China. What can we do when one after the other keeps popping our way? It is not something that we decide to bring about, it is something that China does. Now, this crisis, and before I just hand this over to General Shankar, I'd like to mention, is going to bring about a couple of things with regards to China itself. The regular lockdowns, the crazy COVID protocols, the real estate crisis, and a lot many more things are going to affect one thing which is the most prime to China is its exports. It's going to be like a shopkeeper with no customers. Sir, thank you so much for joining me to understand where we stand or where the world stands with regards to decoupling with China and how is this game going to go forward.
Thanks a lot, Adi, and good afternoon to all viewers. Yeah, it's nice to be back interacting with everyone. Decoupling with China is actually a factor which started with the COVID crisis, say 2 years back. Um, and at that point of time, it was realized that the world was quite intermeshed with China, and China had become the uh, factory of the world, the manufacturing end of the world, and many of us couldn't live without it. Uh, Many people struggled through the intense COVID period without many things from China. And then they had to fall back to China, and then China assumed larger than life importance. But it was at that time people realized that look, the world can't just rely on China only for many reasons. So this business of diversification started. At that time, I still remember that China used to boast that the world can't live without it, etc., 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 etc. But over a period of time, even then, I had felt that decoupling, which has happened over a 20, 30-year period, won't happen over a 20-day or a 20-month period. It will take time. And it would take about 5 years to 6 years to decouple. And it's also not necessary that you decouple 100%. You just had to decouple enough
Hmm.
so that you can hedge your bets. There's a different source, and there's a fallback option.
Yeah.
These were the drivers of decoupling. When it started, then slowly, things have caught pace. Now things have caught pace both ways. As much as the world wants to decouple from China for many things, there is an isolationist tendency within China itself, which has come up, and and that isolation tendency is part of its geopolitical outlook and certain internal policies. Now that is also driving decoupling. So now decoupling is being driven by two factors, fundamentally factors internal to China and factors external to China. So a combination of this is today driving decoupling. Now each of these factors which we will talk of has its own dynamics, but overall there is a synchronization of these issues where it is the exports from China are getting hit.
Hmm.
So we can talk about this in detail. We can start wherever you want, yeah, Adi. One by
So,
one, we can.
I kind of put these issues down into a list. So let's just look at that and see, I mean, not necessarily start from the top, but let's just see what the issues are and let's take that forward, sir. Uh,
Yeah,
this is the list. I think, of course, a lot of people will have a lot more to add. I mean, there are multiple issues, but these two, as we were discussing earlier offline as well, seem the biggest and the most important issues that China is kind of grappling with today. And here, by the way, there's no Taiwan. There's nothing mentioned here. So there's a whole different set of issues that we are discussing. So let's
yeah.
talk about the COVID crisis, sir.
Okay. First,
Yes,
we'll
sir.
take.
Please.
First, we'll talk of the COVID crisis. How the COVID crisis has spurred I mean, like I said at the beginning, the COVID crisis is the prime driver of the decoupling. It started from there. Okay. Initially, you know, the whole world had decoupled from itself. Individually isolation and all that. And so a certain amount of decoupling started. People started looking inward outside. Just like we had this program of Atmanirbharta, America had this program of Make in America and X, Y, Z. They started looking inwards to be self-sufficient and not reliant outside. So that is one part of the decoupling which started. The second part of the decoupling started really with the internal problems of China, right? Now, China has been going through a whole series of lockdowns and etc. The biggest one being Shanghai, and currently Chengdu is also going through a similar lockdown. It is headed in the same direction, as I understand. So, with these kind of lockdowns, say a particular place was in lockdown, a part had to come from there, that was not available. So, the other place where another part was being made was waiting for this part to come to make a subsystem, and that's it. When by the time that was ready, that went into lockdown. So, this business of lockdowns started touching each other. Then there were lockdowns of transportation and etc., and then because of COVID protocols, China depends a lot on raw materials coming in. Those were not coming in. So all these things you know uh, messed up the supply chains. Now when the supply chains were not there, and this plus the earlier factor forced people to have alternate sources of supply, right? So they were going elsewhere. They were going initially to Vietnam. They were going to Bangladesh. They were going to Indonesia. They were going to all small Philippines and all that. But very surprising. I won't say surprising, but naturally, the other day I was speaking to a pretty senior Taiwanese diplomat. He was saying, "Where will people go? Uh, you know, Vietnam, Taiwan, or for that matter, Philippines and all, they don't have the ability to produce in scale. Certain things would go, but mostly the big ticket items where thing has to come to India, because it's only India which can match China in scale,
Scale.
right? So that process has started. Okay, it is just because that they want an alternate to China. People don't want to put everything in China. They still want to continue because the investments are there, the system is in place. No businessman wants to upend the system, but they want a hedge away, and the hedge away is like I said, and that is happening. In fact, the business of the first phase of COVID and the second phase of COVID today, where China is going through internal lockdowns, at the same time, the rest of the world has not started living with it. So making an item outside China has become easier than making it inside China. So this decoupling is taking place. This is the point about COVID. Now we'll touch upon demography and other things. We all know that the demography of China is changing. Okay. Now people are getting aged. The working level population is going down. And this is a slightly a long-term thing, which should have actually one of the last points of decoupling. But since it's number two, we'll discuss it. So what has happened in this is that as the working population of China goes down, wages will go up. As wages go up, things become costly. And if things become costly, people will not go to them. There will be an alternate source which people will buy from outside if there is available. And sooner or later it will come up because everyone knows that China is aging. Right. So certain amount of decoupling will happen because of this factor, demography. And the next point of democracy is a related point, but which is driving decoupling in a different manner. Within China is a huge market for consumption, but as China is aging, its consumption pattern is changing.
Demand reduces.
No, I won't say demand reduces. The demand is going somewhere else. Okay, if the demand is of different kind of items, manufacturers have to switch from the one to the other. It is not as if today a chap who's making plastics can make something else tomorrow, right? That business first has to collapse, and then he has to make something else, right? So if businesses start collapsing because of this factor, it will hit the supply chains. If it hits the supply chains for outside the country, automatically decoupling starts. So demography has two aspects. It drives up the cost due to labor short supply, and it collapses business because of the change in consumption pattern within China, and that is where decoupling has gained momentum. So far, any questions you have, we'll clarify, and then we'll go ahead for the next one.
No, so one of the, I mean, actually, just to add, I think there was a recent article that was written in SEMP about a couple of days ago where they spoke about the factor that today in China, the latest thing, I mean, we all know about the lying flat movement which is taking
Yeah.
place. Today, it's gone from lying flat in terms of their workforce to lying flat in their personal lives.
Yes.
How do you kind of fix that in with the
Yes. The
demography?
same thing. See, if a chap doesn't work, see, you need workers. What was the demographic dividend of China? Cheap labor, plentiful
Hmm.
labor.
Yeah.
When a chap doesn't get into that, he is not there. So your costs go up. As simple as that. Okay, lying flat means that chap is not prepared to work. He is not prepared to work like earlier. So that is how it is, right?
Indeed, sir.
Okay. The next thing is, let's talk of the existing supply chain instability. Now, because of these two factors, the supply chains within China have been hit. Right now, there has been shortages of container traffic because of COVID.
Hmm.
There has been traffic of problem of traffic movement from one place to the other. So many things which have happened, and all these have contributed to the supply chain instability, right? Internal and external. Okay, and then people are suddenly realizing, why should I go all the way to China? Aren't there better, nearer options? So that has also contributed to this supply chain instability, and people are going elsewhere, and the people are diversifying. The supply chain instability at this point of time is enhancing the diversification, and that is decoupling.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, that's the point which one has to think of. Now, this Xinjiang report.
This is a big bomb, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It's a big bomb for the simple reason that, as it is, a lot of items which are from Xinjiang were under some kind of a sanction because it was being forced labor XYZ. Now this report is official. Now, if this report is official, most of the Western world will cannot buy items which are originated from Xinjiang, which means their demand. You see, that's their interest and that's their morals or whatever. That's their national policy, so they'll not take it. So this means that whatever item is originated from Xinjiang will not be bought out. So Xinjiang will, and that means a certain amount of decoupling is happening because of those items which are being made ex that place. And moreover, China can't fake it because it has to be certified that all the materials in that are made from outside. And in these international businesses, they'll go to the source materials. It's not as if tomorrow you make something from Xinjiang and sell it from Shenzhen or something like that, and say made it in Shenzhen. Because see, at the end of the day, if I am a shirt seller based on Xinjiang cotton, I know how to make out Xinjiang cotton or otherwise. If someone from Shenzhen is selling an item which is ex Xinjiang, right, and I am based in America and I am an importer from there, if someone catches me that this has come from Xinjiang and not Shenzhen, my license is gone. So why should I go be a fall of my own laws? So certain amount of this decoupling is started already on that. You remember H&M, I think doesn't any source anymore. So many other places, so many other things. So this is driving decoupling in a big way, right? I think even some solar panels which are from Xinjiang are facing the same problem, which are made in Xinjiang. So this is
So if I
going to
may,
drive, yeah.
are you trying to say that it's going to be like sanctions by association to a certain extent?
Look, it's not
Not
sanctions by
sanctions, but
association.
you know,
No, no, there are sanctions. Countries have put sanctions on it. USA has put sanction on anything coming from Xinjiang, if I'm not mistaken. They put an advisory come sanction that you can't buy anything from source anything from Xinjiang, which is basically attributed to the forced labor and all that. Now, if that is so, there's no association that importers from that country will have to follow this. There's no choice, right? So, certain amount of decoupling will start because of this, right? So that is there. That is why China hit back with counter sanctions against H&M and all that. Okay, so this is going to happen. The real estate crisis is something slightly different. You have to understand it in a different manner. I mean, I'll put it this way. If you today go to Firozabad was once the center of glass industry in India. Anything to do with lights and glass and all, you went to Firozabad and bought it. 2 years back or 3 years back, I went to Firozabad to buy some items, for my house. So to my horror, I found everything there is from China. Complete your household electric items is from China. That industry, local industry, just makes bangles and small things like that. No, small, certain local items of Indian origin. Otherwise, what was once a thriving glass business is no more. It's all taken down, and it is China which is all over. And that's true all over India. It's not only there, it's all over India. Okay, how does the real estate crisis affect this whole story? So I'll get back to China. If there's a flat being built, that flat needs ancillaries, whether it is steel, needs cement, you need fitments in the house, lighting, switches, etc., and all that. A house has so many things, doors, glass, all that. Now, if the real estate is down out there, okay, a lot of firms are hit. And if the real estate is collapsing the way it is collapsing, all these firms will get hit. Their
That's
scales
correct.
will go down. They will not be sustainable. I mean, I don't know how far it is right or not, but a lot of small scale industries are going out. A lot of small units are packing up. Okay. And this is also confirmed in some manner by the fact that you don't get migrant labor very easily today. I won't say you don't get migrant labor. Migrant labor is surplus. They're not getting jobs. A lot of migrant laborers today without jobs, and most of these migrant laborers used to work in small industries. Okay, I think I put it across right. So migrant labor surplus out there. One. Number two, the fact that small firms are packing up is indicated by the fact that many young people are not getting jobs. So a fair portion of young people, new graduates, get absorbed in the small firms. So if small firms are not getting able to provide employment, they're not employing migrant labor. That means either they're scaling down or they are packing up, and both is happening. Some are just eking out their living and running the factory day to day, and some are packed up their businesses. Now, just think, if a factory which produces lights packs up, and that those lights are being bought and sold in Firozabad, and the chap in Firozabad can't, you know, go back and buy those items because they're not there anymore. Okay, so you will search for alternatives. So that decoupling will take place. You'll never go back to China for that. A personal example, it's a very small thing, but it indicates, it reinforces. I have one chandelier in my house. So I didn't know. I bought the chandelier, it looked nice, everything. So one day, the one bulb in that chandelier got fused. So 3 years back, when I wanted a replacement for that bulb, I could get it in a local shop in Chennai. Last year, one another bulb fused in that. So I went back to that shop and said, "Look, can I get this bulb?" He said, sorry, you don't get these bulbs anymore because they were coming from China and now it's out. They are not being manufactured in China. I said, why? That factory has closed down. So I have moved on. I have bought a bulb from somewhere else or made some jugaad or whatever and, moved on. I'll never get that bulb back and that bulb will never get made. That means its decoupling has taken place. I'm giving you a small example, but it has got large value. And this, if you spread across the board, it's quite a bit. And the real estate crisis will force decoupling. The other factor of decoupling with the real estate crisis will force is in financial markets, bonds. A lot of people have invested in the real estate bonds of China. Now, all those bonds will get hit badly now. Okay. And investor confidence will go down in the real estate market. As it is, has gone down, all the shares have gone down. Many of those bonds are worthless, not worth the paper, it's not coming out. But, well, if you own a bond of Evergrande, you think you'll get money back out of it? It's out. The moment, many people are there, the investor confidence in the thing goes, decoupling starts automatically. That's the point. Okay, you will not only not buy you can't sell that Evergrande paper which you're holding, which is anyway useless. You will not buy another Chinese thing, right? So there's a certain amount of. Then this last business is now part of Xi Jinping's brainchild, primacy to state-owned enterprises. Ever since Xi Jinping has taken power, he is veered hard left. He's discouraged private people and encouraged state-owned enterprises, big mega firms. They are the ones who are cornering businesses, international businesses, and all that. So when that happens, most of the private players like Alibaba, Tencent, BB, all these steps have gone out. Now, when those steps have gone out, investor confidence in the private equity market of China has gone down, which means decoupling is taking place. Further, those uh, firms used to attract a lot of business inside. You know, they used to attract a lot of talent. They used to attract advertisements. They used to attract X, Y, Z. All that is gone, or rather going down. Just I think 10 cent has already suffered 50%
Yeah.
reduction in earnings. Now that's a huge one. Okay. Now the moment the private enterprises have started going down, the smaller ones would have started collapsing again. Smaller firms are collapsing. Now, if smaller firms are collapsing, again, what's happening? Decoupling. So, if you see overall, the decoupling, actually, the whole idea of decoupling and the problem of decoupling started with COVID. Okay. And the tail end of it is going to be felt in the demographic crisis when the demographic dividend vanishes. But in between, the things like Xinjiang report will and accelerate the decoupling. Real estate, uh, I will put it this way: the existing supply chain instability and the Xinjiang report are accelerators of decoupling. They accelerate decoupling. Real estate crisis is a primary decoupler. It forces decoupling. State-owned enterprises drives decoupling completely. They don't accelerate. It is because of these the decoupling is taking place. COVID crisis is the fundamental root cause of decoupling. Demography is a long-term problem. When all these problems start seeming to get over, demography will take over for decoupling. Okay, so if these 6 points, you could classify it as a starter of decoupling. You could say primary contributor of decoupling, the enhancer of decoupling, and the long-term impact of decoupling. Now, my guess has always been that if decoupling with China from a business point of view takes about, say, comes to about just about 25%, I'm not aiming for more, 25% in the next 3 to 4 years overall from where it was to, if decoupling takes place, 25% market value. then you're going to see a significant slowdown in the Chinese economy. As it is, it has started slowing down. So it will become a multiplicative effect. As decoupling takes place, people find alternate sources or get to other places, you will find decoupling increases. For example, your own Atmanirbharta, if today you're dependent on APIs from China for pharmaceuticals, tomorrow if you set it up on your own, you're not dependent on them, that means you're decoupled. The moment you decouple, their GDP goes down. Similarly, if USA has started the Chips Act, and
Mm,
they're making chips in their own, or for that matter, someone opens up a rare earth minerals uh, source elsewhere, okay, it all goes to decoupling. It will happen layer by layer, industry by
mm,
industry.
mm, mm, mm.
I think this decoupling up to 20 to 25% will go on very fast. After that, it might stabilize or it might continue, but probably not at this pace. Hitherto, for the past 2 years, it was the idea which was crystallizing. Today, that idea has turned into action. And for the next 2 to 3 years, you'll find this happening. And when you find this happening, you'll find Chinese economy cooling off. Of course, I will not add with the other factors which are there. Okay. So you will see. I don't see the Chinese economy recovering back to the earlier levels. Okay. And if you add all this drought and other things which we have spoken of, and Xi Jinping's common prosperity and his
Taiwan.
continued Taiwan issue, all these, you'll see decoupling happening far more than what we have seen so far.
Mm, mm.
It's well on its way and probably irreversible, right? So this is what I had to say, and I think we've had now. We can discuss and take questions.
Yes, sir. Couple of things I wanted to ask you before I dive in with people. Guys, please start adding in your questions. Uh, you know, do hit the like button for me to reach a larger audience, and of course, check your subscription. You can also contribute, and I'd like to take this moment to thank some people who have actually taken the time and effort to contribute towards Dev Talks. You can contribute towards the UPI or the membership or the thanks button just below the video. So, one thing I wanted to ask you is that, of course, the plan for decoupling is a gradual, status because no country can just snap ties, and we can see what happens when you try and do that with the whole Russia and Europe example, to be very specific. So the plan was a gradual decouple, and we are going with that. But having said that, there are events within China today which are showcasing the factor that, as you said, the investor confidence. I'm going to look at it within a little different thing. I'm going to talk about consumer confidence. Uh, I book a car or a electronic vehicle or whatever it is, and there is a lockdown and I get stuck. How far do you think the world is going to sit back and look at this? Because you look at examples right now where Tesla's production is down by 50%. iPhone 14 is supposed to be launched or produced in India and China both. This is the first time something like this is happening. So obviously you can see certain, murmurs with regards to the confidence within the capacity, production capacity of China. How do you see this?
Look, this is going to accelerate itself. Tesla might not immediately come out of it, but for Apple started this process a year back. If you
Yeah.
remember, 1 year back, I think we discussed this. Okay, Apple had gone to the what's that? The vocational training, national level vocational training agency, which we have made, and uh, they asked those people, look, we are going to establish a factory where we're going to employ 3 to 5 lakh people over the next 5 years. Every year we're going to employ 50,000 people, and they're well on their way. They bought the land, everything is there. That's happening. Okay, Apple has already hedged its bets, right? Now it'll go to start producing here slowly. And if the situation in China goes bad, they'll switch out. It is not only here. I think they have put a factory elsewhere also. One of the place I they put, I don't remember. One of the ASEAN countries, they put another factory. So they have one factory there, one factory in India, and they're making one more factory in India. So if three factories come up outside China, slowly they'll start winding down China. Okay, and like I said, any of these accelerators will only hasten the problem.
Hmm.
Okay, I- it's a matter of time for Tesla also. You might find a situation ultimately there will be point of stabilization. That stabilization will come. Whatever the foreign firms are making for the China market, they might make there. For the international market, they might move it out.
That's a
Okay.
big thing.
Yeah,
That's a big thing.
that's a big thing. Which it will hit Chinese exports badly. And you see, all this is negativity. The negativity will roll over each other.
True. I
Yeah.
think that's what I was hinting at. I mean,
Yeah,
and
it'll roll.
what about India, sir? Whatever said
Look,
and done, we've
I
not been able to do what we needed to do. And yeah, there are reasons. APIs are critical. It's not an overnight industry, but
I
what's up
have
with our
my
side,
I have a different view on this.
sir?
My view is that India should not try to ape or clone China. We need not be a manufacturing hub. Our laws, our ethnicities, our politics, local politics will not, uh, take the strain of all this nonsense manufacturing. If there is too much manufacturing which happens here, there's going to be pollution. You need water. You don't have water. You're also a water scarce nation.
Scarcity.
So whatever you have to do, we should not run after the GDP like idiots. We should take a balanced view. Okay, we don't want to become another China, polluted. And today, whatever has happened to China can happen to you also tomorrow. They'll dump you. Business is business. So you have to take a call as per your needs and your national interest. That is the fundamental thing. I will go with the Prime Minister's Atmanirbharta call. The Atmanirbharta call says first be self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is good, okay, but we should not become the bloody supplier of the world. That the cost for that will be too heavy.
What about Indian dependency on China, sir, for a lot of
Look,
items that we see?
the point is this: for many things, if you think that by tomorrow the dependency can stop, it can't happen. Till your Atmanirbharta plans come into play properly, uh, you know that won't happen. So you have to put your Atmanirbharta plans in a proper manner, and phase by phase, item by item, layer by layer, sector by sector, you have to get away from China.
Right. So let's look at the first question, sir.
Yeah.
I think Alpha with A was also concerned that we won't be on time. Trust me, guys, when we say 4, we're going to be there at 4. So don't worry about that. But the question says, do you think India has its own supply chain route in India apart from Chabahar? If China and Taiwan might be started at some point.
Oh well, I think I think you're way off. China Taiwan war is firstly not starting immediately.
No, I
India,
think, sorry, he's put in a clarification. I'm sorry to interject, sir.
uh,
He says Iran, China are increasing every day.
Iran and
So
China. Look,
that's his
just
concern.
because Iran and China relations are improving by the day, don't think everything is hunky dory between them. Iran is a very difficult customer to handle, and Iran might say something and do something else, right? Today, Iran and China relations are good only to the extent of oil because Iran is selling oil to China. It doesn't mean Iran will import everything. Okay. In any case, if an item has to come from China, why should it go to Iran? You can might as well get it directly. So that is not a problem because no one is stopping you to for importing from China. The problem is China. You need an alternative to China, not item going to this thing. So I don't think there's a such a thought process uh, is not necessarily correct. Yeah.
Ashwani Jaswal says General is right. Decoupling must be done in about 5 years in all strategic items. Rest unimportant things can continue. So
Yeah,
before you
I.
answer, there is
Uh,
also another tranche to this, and an additional question here is also national interest, which is given as a very clear factor that it is in our interest to buy stuff from China at the moment because the other alternatives are expensive and they're
yeah.
far away.
See,
So,
at this point of time, there are many items you cannot do without Chinese supply. Let's be very clear.
so
But having said that, what Ashwini is saying is right. Certain items you can take it from me, which are of real core strategic interest. We had stopped from China long back. Even 5 years back, we said nothing. These places, no Chinese item can be put. That is already in place, especially in our strategic systems and weapons and all that. In fact, many of us who are in the procurement business, in acquisitions and procurement and all, had to give a certificate to say that no item from China is coming. This is now 5, 6 years back. So, okay. So to that extent,
5 6 years back, sir.
yeah, yeah. On certain items, it was very, very clear, right?
Interesting to note.
So it is not as if that we have been foolish to go depend on China for everything.
Mhm.
Now it is caught pace. Now that's why I said we need to have a plan. Which are our most critical items which we should not depend on China? We should go Atmanirbhar on that first. And then certain items, there's no point in decoupling. You might as well buy it cheap, even if you get it. But over a period of time, if more decoupling takes place, those items will not no more be cheap. So you know, these dynamics will change. But why I have put this of 5 years? 5 years is just a benchmark. It's not necessary that the entire decoupling will happen the way we want it by 5 years. It could happen earlier, a year. It could happen a year later. Okay, but 5 years is the approximate time, and all these plans, everything will have to be reviewed on a yearly basis. And what we have been able to do, not been able to do. Okay, so let me put something else in perspective. We had this plant in Tirunelveli, which is the Sterlite plant, which was making copper. When that plant was making copper and everything, or ready to be commissioned, whatever the state was, we were on the verge of becoming one of the big exporters of copper. That plant was shut down for many reasons. Without going into the politics and the morality of that plant was shut down. The moment that plant got shut down, we become a net importer, and from where? China, of copper. So there are issues. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not so easy that tomorrow you decouple bolo. It's not like tala kol do. No. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So I have a question to you as from someone who's not able to join us today. He says that what is yeah. So what is the with the recent agreement between the US and China with regards to audit of their Chinese firms which are registered in the New York Stock Exchange? How do you see the decoupling going forward? Because does it look like that the Chinese are bending backwards to try and accommodate whatever companies are still registered there?
Yeah. I see. It's like this. There are two parts of the story. A lot of Americans and international investors have invested in China.
Hmm.
Okay, in these shares of these companies. Okay. Uh, if those companies are not on the US market, say New York Stock Exchange, they lose value. If they lose value, those people lose value. So that is the American side of the story. On the Chinese side of the story, if these firms are delisted from New York Stock Exchange, then their shares fall and the company valuation falls XYZ, and it will hit the whole GDP, gross valuations, and all that. So this. Both have this problem. To a larger extent, China has the problem than the others. Okay, so and New York Stock Exchange very rightly said, unless we get clarity on what we want, we will not list you. So China had no option but to open their accounts. Okay, and put get them back on the stock exchange. So China will do this because the hit in this case relatively affected China more. because a lot of their state-owned enterprises were involved. So it's happened. It will continue. Now, if China is weak, there'll be more exposure
Yeah.
of their accounts, etc., etc. They'll be audited. That audit will become strict. And one more thing, what will happen now is China knows, and investors know that the Chinese are on the edge. Slowly, people will start withdrawing money. If I am an investor, I'll not put money in a Chinese firm. If I'm already invested in the Chinese firm, I will start pulling out. It's basic common sense here. Okay, so this process will be an interesting process. We'll have to see how it goes forward. And this probably might end up taming China more because one of the things which Chinese lay a big store by is their economy. What they can't sustain, the Chinese communists, is a hit on their economy. Okay, it is one is a unhappy people and second is an unhappy economy. Both contribute to the communist downfall. So let us see where it goes. Yeah,
Right. Harsh asks a question. He says, "How do you think Chinese legal warfare after the? How do you see Chinese legal warfare after recent incidents now?"
they will make it more. They'll become more legal. They will manufacture legality. They'll become aggressive in this part of this three warfare strategy because the three warfare strategy has to convince you that they are better. It has to convince their own people they are the best. Yeah, the three warfare strategy will blow all out. Actually, it is happening. You see a upping of the three warfare strategy. I mean, why go that far? I have had my personal experience. Today only I put out an article called "My Pet Monkey." It's in the Taiwan in the Defense Talks WhatsApp group also, and it's on my website. Please have a look. For the past 1 month or 1.5 months, the Chinese have been at it with me. In fact, more. I didn't realize it. Now I'm very clear. The moment the chap puts that comment, I know this fellow's from China. So their three warfare strategy is full blast, expected to increase. Yeah,
Can I ask you this, sir? Because when you increase a strategy like this, I mean, it's all about propaganda,
psychology,
psychology.
psychology,
Yeah,
psychology. They're playing
basically
on your
that
psychology.
leaving apart the lawfare. Uh, that in India, of course, is not going to work for them because it'll take
Yeah, yeah,
20
that's
years
okay.
before the result comes out. But the rest too are basically psychological. These things.
See, they
There is a limit to how much psychological game that you can play. After some time, your mind will reject it.
if you have nothing else, that's all you have to pay. You'll play and you'll play it more. I mean, he's a communist. Yeah, you tell me, show me one communist who doesn't know, who can't talk propaganda, who will not talk propaganda.
Yeah, that's true.
So it is their DNA. If the DNA is three warfare strategy, they'll increase it. Okay. So I mean,
True.
don't expect them to behave like you and I.
No, I'm actually. I just came to me when you said, don't expect them to behave as yeah, I'm trying to expect them to behave with a brain, which
No, 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 no,
a
no.
thought
They have a
process
brain.
is.
Look, their
It's a
brains
little
are
bent
wired in.
towards the other
No,
side.
no, no. Look. Their brains are wired in a particular manner.
Yeah,
For the past 30, 40 years, that wiring system has worked for them. Why will they change it overnight?
absolutely.
So be prepared that they will go back to their time-tested methods. It might not work for you anymore, but it will work for them. That's their belief. So let us see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Do you think China can improve their fertility rate when rich countries like Japan, South Korea are unable to do anything about it? South
Uh,
Korea hit 0.84.
yeah, I don't think they can never improve their fertility rate. That is irreversible, and it is not Shankar who is saying. It is Chinese scientists who are saying. International agencies are saying. Everyone says it is going down. So who am I to say whether it will go up or not? But my fundamental question is, it is no more. It will no more come back. The fact that they have to get brides from Pakistan tells everything.
I mean, previously we discussed before this real estate crisis that people didn't want to because the financial pressures were too much.
Yeah,
One can only
it,
imagine when he's lost a house.
yeah, yeah. They don't have a house to stay. They can't buy anything, everything. Why will you get married? Will you get married? That's the question. If you don't have a house, you don't have a job, you have a mortgage on your head, your savings are stuck in a bank. Okay. And if you go and protest and ask for it, you're getting beaten up on a road. Will you get married? So the chances are less.
I think this is in reference to our API discussion. We have
Yeah,
already started 115 API plants coming
yeah.
up in Gujarat
I
alone.
we correct. See, the point is this. I agree that this plan has been put in place, but all these plans, everything have a gestation period. For this plan to come up and start producing to scale, it will take 2 to 3 years. We don't expect anything to happen within. It has just started. I what my analysis and what my information from the industry says is another 2 years, certain things will come by. Certain complex APIs will start coming in. After that, let's see where it goes. But there is a clear path that we need to take, and the government is taking. So there's a plan in place that is more important for us, and that plan is rolling out. That's the this thing. Yeah.
So, Mr. Venki says, I agree with General PRS. I think that's going to be your nickname, GPRS. Our pharma is heavily dependent on heavy metal and rare earth based drug intermediaries, which our regulators don't want to be made in India.
Yeah, why should we get? That's why I said there is a plan. To the best of my knowledge, there is a plan. What can be made safely, what can be made with risk, and what need not be made. They're in three categories. And then what is to be made is based on the safety and the requirement. I mean, requirement is the urgency of the requirement. So there's a holistic plan in place, and I'm very sure that is getting operated. Okay.
So, Sachin says, also India should try improved working conditions for women, maternal leaves, etc., so as to not have a drastic decrease in fertility rate, as no country in the world has been able to increase it once it's down.
Sachin, go and tell this to people in Bihar and UP. Okay, we'll leave it at that. This is too political a question or a
Yeah.
social a question for me to answer.
But
Yeah.
having said that, I think people have started looking at these rates where India's population kind of peaks out at 2040 and all that. I guess
Look,
a lot
look.
of people,
I think we'll leave this out. All right,
yeah.
because we. Okay.
Chinese protesting against lockdown were beaten badly, and can CCP afford the adventures of Mao?
No, they can't afford the adventures of Mao, and the way things are going uh, uh, from event to event, status to status in China. Don't be surprised if things come to a head one day. See, the thing about revolutions is that it will happen one fine day. And when things happen, people sink without a trace. We don't know when a revolution will happen. Is a revolution on the cards? If you ask me today by all logical say issues, I'll say no. But what's cooking inside China, we don't know. So what happens tomorrow in China? Have we entered the zone of unpredictability? Not yet. But as we likely to enter that zone of unpredictability in China, highly likely. When I won't guess an answer because we don't know when it will happen.
Sir, before I move forward, I seem to have got three questions from people who are not with us
Yeah,
today on the show. I'm going to ask you those questions, but I just want to take this opportunity to ask everyone: do you think that 4 o'clock is the right time? If you like us to do it any other time, please do let us know. You know my email address. Most of you guys are, a lot of you guys are connected on WhatsApp. If nothing else, please drop your comments on the box and tell us if you want us to get back to the 9:30 time, uh, because it's just it's something that we want to
yeah,
fix
we'll take a call. I
so that we
understand.
can figure it out.
Yeah, we'll
Right.
figure
So the
out the
questions,
timing based on the feedback which we get. Yeah,
feedback it comes. The question actually says, sir, is that with the ongoing 20th Party Congress, which is going to come up on the October 16th, what is the scenario that Xi Jinping is going to look at with regards to convincing the CCP leadership to ensure that he gets another term? looking at the current lockdowns and this and that, how does this affect his re? I mean, he's written re-election. I'm going to say re-selection.
Look, as far as we are concerned, as far as we know, and what I've gathered from many people, Xi Jinping getting back into that seat is a given. There's a lot of talk that thing will be curtailed, someone will come up. Yeah, well, let's not this thing, and let's not hazard a second guess. Let it happen. Like I said, we are talking of a China which is absolutely opaque. So give it at that.
Sir, we have someone really important who's joined us, Miss Tara
Oh,
Kaka. Ma'am, I think you must join us for a live show. Thank you
yeah.
so much for
Next
the
time
comment.
call her over and she'll come. I'm sure she'll come.
You must join us for a live show. We'll plan out,
Yeah.
something, and it'll be great to have you with us.
Okay.
Uh, so moving on, the next question is from Venkat, who says, "Do we have carrier killers to join to
To
counter
counter,
Chinese aircraft carriers?"
ah, that's an interesting question. For the first reason, whether we have carrier killers or not, where is the Chinese carrier in Indian Ocean? It's not left South China Sea also. Let it come. Long way. And a carrier killer could be anything. There's no missile which says I am a carrier killer. Any missile which can hit a carrier and kill it is a carrier killer. You have BrahMos which can kill that carrier. So let's not this thing. Uh, Again, I see Chinese propaganda having affected people just because they say they have a carrier killer. Okay, uh, from my side, even a rat will be a carrier killer at the right time. If you put it in some electronics and eats up the electronics and something, and it will kill the carrier. So a carrier can be killed many ways, not necessary by a specific missile system. Okay, so the current thing is, if you say, does India have a designated carrier killer? No. Does it need one immediately? Not necessary. Okay, it's not cross Malacca Strait. Not even for trials, it has not come. So a long way. By then, can we kill a carrier? Yes, we can. So, okay.
I agree with you, sir. With regards, the whole propaganda machine is gone on overdrive. So a
Yeah,
lot of
it's an
people
overdrive.
actually get, yeah, yeah, of course. Kapil says Atmanirbhar Bharat is the way forward. Boycott China is actually happening on the ground. We will take time, but we will achieve the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Kapil, I like your optimism. I would love Atmanirbharta to go ahead. It is going ahead. Is it going at the right pace? Not as it. Should it go faster? Yes. Should it go very fast? No. Okay. It's going slow in the Indian pace. It's okay. The danger is that tomorrow, if a government changes or ideas change, we shouldn't reverse this story. Okay. The history of independent India is also a case of huge reversals, right? And self goals, especially in the field of economics and diplomacy.
Diplomacy, yes.
Economics, commerce, diplomacy, we've hit too many self goals. So,
Defense.
as far as we guard our own goal against the self goal by some of our own politicians and leaders, okay. And look, mind you, let me tell you, this self goal need not be at the central government, it can be at state level also,
Anywhere.
anywhere. Again, the Sterlite factory is a prime case where the conflict of interest between the state government, the locals, and the central government and the Indian industry were at odds with each other. Resultantly, who benefited? We were not Atmanirbhar, China benefited. Could a reasonable uh, outcome have been formed? We could have. Did we have the capacity to do so? No, we didn't. That is why that we are still importing from China. So there are issues, beyond many our control. It's very nice to say in a talk show like this with 30 people listening or 40 people listening and one person asking a question, oh, we should do this. It doesn't happen always. Why I'm talking of the Sterlite case is because it gives you an absolute real life model where how things can go wrong despite intent. Okay. who benefited is an open question. Did China benefit? India benefit? Locals benefit? Center benefited? State government benefited? No one knows. All I know is that factory is closed. Okay. So there are issues. So we'll leave it at that and we'll cross our fingers to say Atmanirbharta should come through. Okay.
So the last question that came on directly to me, this is with regards to the conversation, of course, I had recently with Leo Pascal, who looked at the Solomon Islands model and with regards to the influence operations. This gentleman asked that what is the status of Chinese influence operations within Indian neighborhood? Do you see the Indian neighborhood learning any lessons?
Why? Oh, that's a very interesting question because let me put it the other way around. There's no one in the Indian neighborhood who is interested in this lesson. They're all they've already fallen prey to the influence operations. The only country which is probably has understood this game is Bangladesh. The rest are all happy.
Yeah.
So you think it's influence, they think it is good. So there is a perceptual difference between what you think and what your neighbors think. Okay. So influence operations of China will continue and they'll continue successfully in those target countries. If there's a country which is indebted to China and they've got a whopping debt, that influence will be there automatically. Haven't we seen it in Sri Lanka when the Yuan Zhuang came in? Despite our objections, everything, they just sailed in when they wanted and sailed out when they wanted. Could Sri Lanka do anything? It was earlier, it was soft influence. Now it is hard influence. They twisted Sri Lanka's tail and said, "You look, I have 26% of your debt with me. I'm going to twist your tail hard." And they had no choice but to allow. So to think that influence operations will go away from our neighborhood, you think Pakistan can do anything? They can't. Look, you okay? This is something which I read today. There is a op-ed in Dawn or editorial in Dawn which has refused to say that what is happening in Xinjiang is detrimental to Muslims. They have said no, China should change course, all that nonsense. But they have said no, by where is the leadership of the Pakistan in the Muslim Ummah? One fool, something happens in Kashmir, they will talk of you know
ये खतरे में है, वो
Muslims.
खतरे में and all that
ये
nonsense.
खतरे में, right? They'll call of incarceration of Muslims. They'll say they're being discriminated, they're being
Articles
ill-treated,
will
all that
start
nonsense.
getting
Huh?
printed.
Yeah,
Articles
yeah.
shall be written all over the world.
All,
And
all the world, all this, that. We stand by Kashmir. Why don't they stand by the Xinjiang Uyghurs, where there are detention centers, where human right violations are taken place? The UN says so. This fellow goes to UN to get beg for food for his floods, but he is not prepared to talk ill about his friend China.
absolutely.
Forget influence operations; they are under full Chinese influence. They are with China. So we should understand that just because China is going through a bad patch doesn't make it weak. The fact that it will become weak is in the future, but right now it is still strong and it is lethal. It is becoming lethal by the day. That's what is should concern us.
Indeed, sir. Mr. Venki puts out a comment and he says China created an army of activists in India and shut down India's biggest copper plant.
Yeah, I agree. I
Absolutely.
agree with what Venkat says. We need not have shut down that plant. I'm not for one moment saying, look, now I'm giving my opinion. I'm not for one moment saying that there was no pollution in that area. There was no, justice to locals. Probably there was injustice to locals. There was pollution. The government mishandled the case. The state government mishandled the case. The local management mishandled the case, and the central government also mishandled the case. Why couldn't the government and both the state and the central government and the local district administration talk to people and make it a people's movement and ensure whatever was to be done could be done and ensure that plant functioned to right pollution standards. They could have come out with some solution, but the kind of influence and misinformation which came from China at that point of time killed the whole plant. Okay, but that's how it is. So we are now learning the hard thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's that's why I said it's very nice to talk of Atmanirbharta, but one has to be careful. At the same time, one shouldn't go the other end. That you force a factory in an area which pollutes that area and is detrimental to local people. Okay, then you're worse than China. So we have to have a balance, and for that you need a stable center. You need a stable state, and both these have to be in sync, right? And both of them have to have that outlook of accommodating people. Otherwise, it will become like farm laws. The farm laws were good; nothing was wrong with the farm laws. But the center didn't know how to take the state along. The state didn't know how to take the people along. The people didn't know what they wanted, right? The good farm laws, which were drafted over a period of say uh, a decade and a half through various governments, went to seed. And today, many people want that farm laws in this time of this thing. They're not there because the whole thing was mishandled.
At the state level, things are happening, but national level, there are issues. No
Not
question.
so. We'll leave it at that. Atmanirbharta is dependent on a lot of things within India, which is not right.
I think what you're saying is consensus. One of the biggest things is understanding and
You need to take
consensus.
everyone along, and for to take
Absolutely.
everyone along, your politics has to be in the center. It can't be an extremist kind of a politics, right? And our highly polarized politics, both in the opposition and in the ruling party. Okay, uh, I'm not talking of religious polarization and all that. No, no, no. That can continue. That is endemic to India. It has been going on for long. It will continue, and you can't stop it. Okay, I'm talking of political polarization. Unless that comes to some this thing, nothing much can happen. Okay.
Sir. Last
Anything
question,
else?
sir.
Okay.
Last question. Majority of power generation equipment of private sectors is private power producers is Chinese. Can China play with supply of spares? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, this part of the Atmanirbharta thing that you have to get out of the Chinese clutches. It can be done. It's not so great. It's not something great. Okay. It's a matter of time. As I said, certain
absolutely.
things will not happen immediately. Certain things will happen immediately. So there is a plan. Look, what my general understanding is, there is a plan. Whoever is planning this is planning it reasonably well. They're not going too fast. Our economy is not getting too hit. It's not getting held hostage also, and we are still dangling a carrot to China. So we are playing a smart game. Don't worry. Yeah.
On that note, sir, I think that's a very interesting note to finish. We are playing a smart game. General Shankar says, I'd like to believe that. One of the things that we see is that the Chinese propaganda machine has been targeted back towards India. So there has to be a reason why, and a lot of people must wonder that yeah, theek hai, border jhagda and all that. Let me assure you that doesn't. That's one part of the game. So what General Shankar is trying to explain to us is a complete influence operations around the Indian neighborhood, and of course within India as well. We need to be careful with regards to what we look at. Now, coming to the decoupling, I think we've discussed this up. It's a great movement that is going to go forward. A lot of us get very nervous when things don't happen immediately. I think on Twitter, I think the whole geostrategic analysis on Twitter is clouding a lot of people's dialogue or understanding, if I may. And people ask such very harsh questions. If this is the case, why don't you do it right now? What's the problem and this and that? There are issues. There are a lot of things, and as Jan Shankar very clearly mentioned, there is a plan that is being followed. Thanks, sir, for joining, and I'll wait for all the viewers' feedback with regards to timings. It'll be nice to hear from all of you guys to let us know when do you like us to start. Uh, 4 is good, and we can all also look at about 9:30 in the night. Till next time for another subject and another in-depth analysis as well as interaction with the great audience. Thank you, sir, and Jai Hind.
Thanks a lot and Jai Hind.